welcome to the Guitar Collection. In my hands today is the dream guitar of so many of us since we started playing classical guitar. And this is an instrument by, of course, Greg Smallman Sons from the year 2023. Now, a little bit of information about Greg Smallman and really his breakthrough lattice-braced design. He started building guitars in the 70s. He met John Williams and was really inspired by the sound of his Ignacio Fleta guitar, this incredible Spanish guitar that he was playing at the time in concerts and recordings. And he was kind of posed with this idea of, well, if there's already sort of this ultimate sound, what can I even do with the guitar? How can I even make one that competes with it? So he really set out to do a totally different design and try to kind of renovate the guitar, I believe, as John Williams says in some interviews in the documentary. So to cut to the chase here, Greg Smallman in the late 70s and early 80s created this lattice-braced design that really propelled the guitar's volume to a whole new level. And we'll get into some of the misconceptions and maybe truths about these guitars in just a little bit. But just to sort of share with you the impact of that change, after everyone could hear the sound of Smallman and how loud these guitars were, it led to a lot of other innovations on the guitar as well. And you have to think that the great maker Matthias Dahmen, who's famous for inventing the double top guitar, heard these guitars and also wanted to find his own way to make guitars extremely loud to compete with these in a concert hall. So, playing chamber music or playing concerts in bigger venues was something a little bit more feasible for the measly guitarist sitting here with a quiet instrument. Of course, those two greats went about it in totally different ways, but with a similar result of volume and projection. Now, that's all I'll say about that. Of course, these guitars were not only popularized and made extremely famous by John Williams, but so many guitarists to follow. And in, I think, around the 90s, Greg's sons began helping him build these guitars. And this instrument, like I said, is from the year 2023, and I have to imagine is in large part built by his sons Damon and Kim. Wow, so where do I start? Maybe with the specs of this guitar. As I mentioned, it is a lattice-braced top. It is unmistakable if you put a mirror inside of the guitar. It is very clearly lattice-braced with carbon fiber reinforcement everywhere. You really should see what the inside of these tops look like by watching the famous documentary where John Williams visits Greg Smallman's workshop in Australia, and you can see them bend around this lattice-braced membrane of a top. It's really cool. Now, the first thing you would notice when you picked up this guitar is how heavy it is. It's extremely heavy. However, once it's in your lap, it just feels really good. It stays in place. I use this grippy pad, but even without it, when I'm playing, I feel very stable. Now, as you can see, the top is made from cedar, and actually several pieces of cedar. And from my understanding, they pieced together several pieces of cedar in order to create the ideal top, which matters a whole lot on this instrument because it is extremely thin. Then, immediately you will notice the iconic Greg Smallman rosette. And I have to say, when holding it in person, it's even more vibrant than I imagined. And these little rings of red around the outside are so beautiful, and it just pops out just the right amount. I can't help but notice how it matches this, what I believe to be Paduk bridge that is quite small. You'll notice that ever since, I believe, the 90s, maybe even 80s, they've installed these little protectors so that you don't ruin the top by doing rasguados or nail marks. It is extremely thin, and to be honest, when you know it's that thin, it's kind of nice to have that protection. Of course, we've got this armrest here, which is really neat. I have to say, one thing that a friend of mine pointed out to me was that it's actually built into the binding of this guitar. It's not glued on, it's one piece, which is very interesting and very smooth and cool. I mean, the way that your arm rests on it, it's just extremely, extremely comfortable. Then I turn the guitar around and you can see this really nice set of zero coat on the back and sides. There's a slight arch to the back as well. It's quite noticeable actually. When it's against your chest, you feel it and it feels round and really nice. Now moving on to the neck. I have to say I was pleasantly surprised because I've played a number of Smallman guitars and some of them have quite thick necks in my opinion that make it a little bit uncomfortable. The neck is fairly thin and I have to say quite comfortable to play. Now, the width of the neck at the nut is 53 millimeters or maybe just a little bit over. And while that is still okay for me, for a lot of players it's a little bit too wide. And from what I understand, they're not really willing to customize that to your preferences, which is a little bit of a surprise to me, but you know, they are really masters at building incredible instruments. So I suppose sometimes you might want to trust them. So we look up at the headstock. This headstock has not changed in design in so many years. This is the classic Greg Smallman headstock. I have to say maybe this is a little homage to Boucher or something with the dip in the center there. It's kind of what it makes me think of in some small way. And now to the most cool feature on this guitar. And if you saw my review of this Altamira Vienna model, the Stauffer guitar, you'll know that this is a feature that actually existed on guitars hundreds of years ago. And here we are again with an adjustable neck on this Greg Smallman guitar, which they've been doing for many, many years. Now, I am holding this tool, which is really nice. I mean, what a gadget, right? I almost want to make a little necklace out of this or something. But anyways, there is a hole up here, higher up on the fingerboard. And when you put this little Allen key, which is all this is an Allen key. When you put it in here, you can adjust the action to go higher or lower extremely easily. Now, I'm not going to do it because it's going to set this guitar out of tune and I want to play some musical examples for you. But this is such a cool feature. It cannot be overstated. Because when you're practicing at home, and especially if you're a concert guitarist or you're doing a lot of recording and a lot of practicing, a lot of performing, it's really nice to be able to practice with a low action and then perform with a higher action. That is to practice all of your passages where they feel really easy when you're practicing, but then when you're performing, maybe you want to lean into it a little bit more, get a little bit more power. And if you didn't have that higher action ability to just change on the spot, well then maybe you would be buzzing all of the strings or something, right? So this gives you the ability to make it a higher action when you want to play harder, or give it a lower action. And I mean, you can go as low as you want to where every note buzzes. And then that will give you an action to where you feel very, very relaxed practicing even the most difficult passages. It's really quite a lot of fun. So I could go on and on about this guitar and all of the little details here, but I would really like to play this instrument for you and show you some more musical examples on it. Before I do, I wanted to talk about a little bit of the misconceptions and maybe truths about these guitars that you'll often hear people say. One of the things that you'll always hear people say about, well, any guitar that's extremely loud, like a Smallman or maybe some of the loudest double top guitars, people will say, oh, well, people that play those, they're just chasing volume. All they care about is volume. They don't really care about the sound of the guitar. You know, of course, this is the most negative thing people really say about these guitars. And I really think if you say this, you really just don't get the appeal of these guitars. And also, I can also understand why someone would say this, because if you're coming from playing a traditional guitar, where you have to push the guitar quite a bit to make it have an appealing sound, to bring out the full character, and then you pick up a Greg Smallman guitar, I think, this is my theory, especially hearing many friends and colleagues play these guitars and try them out, my theory is that you're going to make this guitar sound bad really, really quickly. And you might immediately discard it and say, no, this isn't for me. I can never play one of these. But if you give it a chance, if you give yourself a chance to adjust to it, to realize you don't need to push the string so far. And your hands can relax and the sound just kind of pops off the guitar effortlessly. You'll start realizing the huge benefits of playing one of these instruments. Now, of course, I'm not just talking about how loud it can get with the least amount of effort. I also mean the dynamic range that you can achieve when you have this ability to get really quiet quiets and really loud louds, really forte fortes, right? And that little passage I played for you, Confesión by Barrios at the beginning, I think actually exemplifies one of the things that this guitar is really capable of. I can bring this G out so much and then make the quietest accompaniment note. Consistently. That's not me just tickling the strings once and getting lucky. I can do this every time. Or I could choose to make it louder, which would be unacceptably loud for accompaniment, but you get the idea. I can make this into a really beautiful musical phrase. Get the feeling that you're in control of the sound of this guitar, and it makes you just feel expressive, like you can just make it sing, you know? Wow, well, I'm gonna get carried away playing this guitar. I'll demonstrate all of that in a second, but I do want to remind you to subscribe to this channel. If this is the first video you're seeing here, welcome. If you've just stumbled across this on YouTube, welcome to my channel. I love sharing beautiful classical guitars with you all. I love making these review videos, and I especially love seeing your comments about what you think about these instruments. What has your experience been with Greg Smallman guitars, or guitars that have been similar or built in the style of his? Do you have a favorite? So definitely subscribe to the channel. Make sure you check out guitarcollection.com. I have tons of new instruments coming in. Look behind me. It's like I'm surrounded. You know, they're gonna. I don't know. They're all speaking to me right now. They want to be recorded. So check out the website. New instruments are being listed up all the time. This instrument may just be for sale depending on when you're watching this video. So check it out there. There'll be a link to it in the description. And without further ado, I guess I will go ahead and play some musical passages on this, show you the way the different strings sound and the strengths and weaknesses. So thanks so much for watching. Congratulations to Greg Smallman and his sons for building such a magnificent instrument. And wow, it's a dream to be holding it. Thanks so much, and I'll see you in the next video. you.